Welcome back to the Radical Innovators podcast. I'm your host, Frank Conju, and today we have an incredible conversation for you. We're joined by Payal Sahni, the Chief People Experience Officer and EVP at Pfizer, who shares her inspiring journey and groundbreaking insights on the future of talent and leadership. Payal shares her inspiring and rather accidental journey into HR, a path she found after initially pursuing pre-med. This unique background has fueled her groundbreaking approach to the role, where she is pioneering the rise of the psychologist CHRO. We challenge the traditional thinking about talent and explore why Pfizer is deliberately looking beyond the conversational resume when hiring. You'll get an exclusive look at Pfizer's talent philosophy, which fundamentally embraces progress over perfection. Get ready to reshape how you're thinking about people, potential, and performance. Let's dive into this fascinating conversation with Payal Sahni. This is an episode you won't want to miss. Hey, Payal. It's great to see you again.
Hey, Frank. Really nice to see you.
Excited to have you on an episode of Radical Innovators today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
So as we're in the peak of summer, I'm curious, any highlights of the summer so far or any exciting plans coming up?
You know, I'm trying to beat the heat because in the Northeast here, we've had quite some heat waves. So while I'd love to go outside, I'm like, I can't go outside. I can't even breathe. But we are looking to get away towards the end of the summer, just to drive to maybe a lake and get some mountain air and some cooler air. But beyond that, nothing too crazy.
Well, good for you. Hope you enjoy it. So I think one of the things I love to do when we kick these off is just getting people a chance to get to know you. I think so often people can go and check out your corporate bio, but that doesn't really give a whole lot into who you are as a person. I often open with something like sweet and sour, which is something I open at my dinners with. I had my mother and my stepfather over for dinner last night, and my stepfather has been progressively losing his memory a little bit, and it's early onset Alzheimer's. And last night, in the span of about 3 minutes, he asked me the same question 5 times. And this is probably the worst that it's ever been. And so looking over, I'm not around them all the time. They come over maybe once a week and it's brief. Seeing the look on my mother's face and sort of like almost despair and tears coming down her eyes, I think she's realizing it's getting pretty bad. So that's the sour. Haven't seen that last night. The sweet is it's summertime and I'm getting to spend a ton of time with my daughters. And this weekend I'll be heading up to Cape Cod to spend time with both of them. And then next week, because my daughter is at home, I'll be doing a camp, or she's doing a camp here. So I'll be with her all week. And she's the older one, and she actually enjoys going out to nice dinners and not just eating chicken nuggets. So we can go do some fun stuff with our little one staying behind.
Oh, that's so amazing. That sounds like sad to hear, about the declining health, because that's just something that is so hard to manage, and it happens to so many. And I think that, but it's coupled nicely with all that you have going on. So I think for me, my sour, to be honest with you, it's just in the moment of the day right now is, hearing some of the challenges of like mental health that's happening in our society. So beyond the company that I'm at, but just in general, it really drags me down. My background in psychology. So like when I think about that, and I think about how hard that is to fix in someone because they need to fix it themselves, and the care and support that it's needed. And when it's not taken care of, the consequences that can be. I'd say, the sweet would be, I also have a young daughter and we are getting a puppy. So we finally bit the bullet, and she arrives at the end of the summer. And I think it's just, while it's brought this anxiety around, oh my God, are we really prepared to have a puppy? I've grown up with dogs, but my husband hasn't. So we're all like, oh my gosh, do we have what we need? Do we know what we need to do? And inevitably, you just, you manage it. But I know that the joy that dogs bring, like, they're just happy to see you every time you come home. So very excited about it.
Now, having just gone through this, and a shameless plug for my friend Donna, there's always one Walmart order away and they deliver on the same day. So if you don't have anything, beautiful. You can always get it quite quickly. So
excellent. I definitely will be making use of that.
I'd love to talk about your personal journey and your background and what brought you into HR. You talked about being a psychologist by background. I likewise, that's what I started off at NYU, was studying psychology. Ended up not going down the path. But curious if you talk a little bit about your background and what led you into HR.
Sure. It's kind of I feel like HR found me versus me finding HR to some degree. But, I came to this country from Afghanistan. My parents are from there and came when I was 6 years old. So a lot of, while sort of schooling wise was in, taking English and things like that, most of my conversational English I learned from watching Sesame Street when we first moved to Queens, which was great. So I really, that show holds a very special place in my heart. And, grew up in New Jersey and went into college. And, like a lot of children from my background, your parents put this pressure on you of like, what are you going to be? A doctor, a lawyer? Like, it's got to be something. And I thought, okay, I guess I'll be a doctor. And I went in pre med, to Rider University. And I realized in the first year that I loved biology, loved learning about the brain and the body. I couldn't stand chemistry. And one of my teachers said, look to the left and look to the right. Half of you won't be here. And I was like, that would be me because I don't really think I belong in this field. Very squeamish, love helping people and love the concept of, what science can do because that's part of how you operate in general. Your brain is a lot of, how you think and feel. But I didn't want to be a physician in that mode. And I went to my mom and I said, this is just, I'm having a really hard time. I'm doing well in my studies, but I really don't find myself doing this. And she said, okay, go explore. And I ended up, my professor, back then was just like, well, why don't you just stay within the School of Arts and Science? It's easier that way rather than exploring business. And have you tried psychology? So I took my first psych class and I fell in love. And I was completely fascinated by why do people do the things that they do? Why did they make the choices that they make? How to really understand, the mind and understand how people interact with one another. And my path was going more down this child psychology path. And then I graduated and then I went to grad school and I said, I'm not really sure if I want to do counseling or what I want to do. So I kind of chose general theoretical psych. And after a year, I remember having breakfast with my father and because I was doing it from New Jersey and living at home. And he said to me, so what are you going to do when you graduate with this degree? And I thought, I don't know. And he's like, you might want to start talking to people and think about what that could lead you. And I found this wonderful professor who first had me audit a class because he said, you're exploring this. Why don't you come to my consumer behavior class? And that, you apply your psychology into, again, why do people make the choices that they make, whether it's marketing or in whatever they do. And he said, think about human resources. And in my head, I was like, well, what is that? What does that even do? I don't even know what that does, right? Because when you're in this experiment phase and when you're in school, you're not in a corporation. You don't even know what this function is. When this is 28 years ago. So I got an internship at Pfizer and I started to, I had this great mentor. She grabbed me and said, look, we're in the middle of like a lot of changes. I could use some help and I'll help you. And she had been in the HR function for a long time. In her background, she was actually a psychologist as well. And she said, why don't you just come shadow me? And I realized very quickly that shadowing her, recruiting, having difficult conversations with people, coaching conversations with managers was not that different than what I had trained for in school. And the experiments that I'd run and the kinds of intake interviews that I was doing. You just had to flip, your stakeholders and your focus, but the skills were the same. And I loved it. I loved the diversity of experiences that I got, the different people I got to meet, the experts in their field. Like, I think I said to my mother, I know you wanted me to be a doctor, but I'm working with a lot of doctors now. So this
That's true.
is like the best thing. And it launched me into exploring a corporate structure, which still allowed me to do like the work that I enjoyed most, which was how do I make people the best version of themselves? How can I equip them with skills and experiences and ways of operating that is going to just make them effective? And that's the core of what, I was doing in HR. Of course, over the course of the years, you add a lot more talent strategy and planning and compensation and incentives. But the core is still what I love most about my job is getting people to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely have to ask, who was your favorite Sesame Street character?
Oh, Big Bird.
Freebird.
Big Bird. Absolutely.
Maybe that says something about the two of us. Mine was Oscar. I don't know if that says something good or bad about me.
That would be
Uh,
the sweet and sour, right?
yeah, exactly. It's interesting to hear you talk about your background coming up through psychology, not having the traditional business background, going into HR. And if you think about like HR and how it's evolved significantly over the years, and you mentioned this, the ability to, or the need to learn a lot of different skills as you've come along. There's part of me that almost says, if you're recruiting someone now, what's the background you're looking for as you think about the way the role of the CPO has evolved over the years?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get asked that a lot, particularly right now, because we have a number of like summer interns that are in the company. And, I say I don't typically look for somebody with an HR background. If you have a business background, that's quite helpful. But your skills of, curiosity, of creativity, adaptability, your interest in learning, those are the things that no matter how the role evolves will allow you to grow your experiences and skills. And that's something that as long as you have the ability to learn and you can apply that learning and take experiences and make them even better, because I myself had to, even when I came in with the not a business background, the people that I was supporting, it was the business. They were physicians or they were marketers, and they were working on a business plan. So I needed to understand what they did in order to help them hire the right people, in order to structure the team in the right way, in order to say you have the right incentives for the behaviors you need. And so adapting, but being able to learn those types of things is really, really critical. And, when someone, to me, I always say, just say yes to like lots of opportunities and experiences and don't get hung up on where's this role going to take me next? Because those roles, as we've seen, right, over a long time now, the pace of change, how rapidly jobs are changing. You no longer have these sort of specific titles for a function and a class or whatever. Everything is just melding because you got to work in cross-functional teams. So the more adaptable you are, I actually get intrigued with people with different backgrounds to bring into HR, including business leaders, which I think is a experience that every strong business leader should have. If you ever want to be a CEO, come into HR before you ever get into that.
Hearing that from more and more of the CHROs that have been on our podcast in terms of not looking at the traditional people that have come up through HR, but as I say that, I'm talking to someone who has, and then just last week I met with Ola Snow from Cardinal Health, who also has a similar background, and it was so funny because she also said that exact same line. HR chose me. If I think about the skill sets, though, you've come up through a number of HR roles. Is there any one role that you say was most transformational or pivotal in your career that helped set you up for success to get into the role you're in today?
Yes, I would probably say two. And, the two would be, so of course, we're a global company. And when I first joined, I was in more US centric roles and dealing with US demographics, sales and marketing, even medical, regulatory, like all those clear functions that are necessary, but they were all US based. And so you didn't have this complexity. And one of the jobs that I took was I raised my hand to support Europe and Africa, Middle East. And that changed my view of, the world. I was always intrigued by different cultures, but operating, when you have 12, 15, 30 different countries that you're trying to operate with, you recognize the nuances needed. And so that kind of shaped how I would think about employee engagement, what mattered, how to roll out a big program enterprise wide, because I'd have to think about works councils and all these things that I never had to think about previously. And then another pivotal role that I did, which was not, wasn't natural to me because I loved commercial. And I think part of it was because I loved the consumer behavior part. So that's more marketing and sales and and science, like selling something that patients need, and you are doing such a noble purpose, which is critical, right? Breakthroughs that change patients' lives. We all have patients in our family. So that got me jazzed up. But I did a stint in manufacturing, and that, you know, it changed my view of of programs, of policies, demographics, because that too was a different level of colleague. I would say talent, where you get talent, the symmetry, but also the complexity with shift changes and the challenge in making sure that you had right coverage and you always had to do something different for manufacturing than you did for everybody else. Like, think about it, during the pandemic, we could work from home. They couldn't, right? So they couldn't. And so what can I do that's different for them that I can't offer them that ability to work from home, but I can give them something else? And to really force that way that when you do a survey, is it worth their time to pull them off a line for every survey? Probably not, because it doesn't make sense for the business, and we can do that in a different way. So that also shifted the way that I thought about the company as a whole, and just seeing the different elements and different functions that come together to actually bring a product to a patient, all the safety, all the regulatory, all the testing that happens, and then to make sure that they have access and patients can get what they need. Like all those different experiences, but also learning the demographics. When I got into the chief experience officer role, our people experience group, it completely shaped, it helped me jump into that better than I would have if I didn't have those experiences. And still, you learn every day. But that one, I said, oh, there's no way I can't create a policy like this, because now I'm in the role of, I'm the one. I can't complain about a policy that is on my
Yeah.
watch. So if I create it, how do I roll it out? What should it say? What are the considerations? And those kind of experiences, you only get, you only think about those when you're in them. When you're living in them, you get emails from those colleagues to highlight different issues, and you learn the next time to say, if I roll this out, these are the considerations that this big population I have to think about. So it definitely shaped me. It made me uncomfortable, but it taught me the most.
Yeah, really makes me think. I'm going to shift to a question that kind of builds on that. So, if you think about the background in those different roles that you talked about, I would imagine, and I don't want to lead you too much, but in the role today, I think you work more closely probably than ever with key counterparts like your CIO or equivalent, or your head of transformation, people that are leading the different business units. Um, how is that? How would you say that that intention around making sure that you moved around and you were a part of other parts of the business has helped make sure that you're more of a collaborative leader today, which is needed more than ever?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I had the benefit of supporting a lot of our leaders through my time at Pfizer. So it forced me to, when I went to manufacturing, I learned manufacturing, but I also learned the team. And the senior executive, the person that's running our manufacturing group, used to be a key counterpart that I worked with in a previous role before we were both on the executive team. So that helped. And you build credibility because you understand what they do. I knew a lot of the commercial leaders because I spent a lot of my time there. R&D was where I was learning more. And a lot of the enabling functions I also had responsibility for, just because that was a way to grow me. So whenever an opportunity came up, I would either do it through a project or direct support to those leaders. So when I joined the executive team, having grown up at Pfizer, I knew a lot of their functions. I knew a lot of their talent. And it was a result of me, taking that time and just accepting different opportunities to support them and learning their business. So when it came to partnering with them, it was very natural. And,
Yeah, and
we
do you
worked
see that
together.
now?
Yeah.
Now, though, I mean, I can imagine with AI disrupting every business and probably so many
Mhm.
parts of your business. Um, I guess there's a two-part question. This number one, do you see that these skills are setting you up to be more collaborative as a result of needing to think through an AI talent strategy? And then how are you using AI specifically to enable your talent strategy as you look at this year and beyond?
So I think the collaboration, in our culture, it has been there for a long time. So I don't know that that was a forcing function for AI, but certainly that's a cultural piece of how work gets done across Pfizer. And I actually love it because it forces you, you think about, who are you really serving at the end of the day? You're trying to get medicines out to patients as fast as you can because their loved ones need it, right? They need more time with them. They want a better quality of life. So it forces you that not one team alone can do it. You have to actually come together as a group. And so that collaboration has been in our DNA for a very long time. I think what you see is that goes from the top to bottom and bottom to top. So our executive team, the way our CEO also runs our meetings, we meet every week or every other week, and we're each one updates what we're doing, and there's shared projects, there's shared goals. So it forces that. AI, for sure, we're all looking at how can we be more effective, efficient, faster, more innovative with the use of AI in order to meet our purpose, no matter where you are and what purpose that. There could be two parts, right? Part one is like, yeah, it can definitely make you efficient. You can get to your answer faster, and you can cut out the waste and the time and energy, right? You can just ask a question, or you can look more at the data insights versus having to verify and collect the data. That's one aspect. The other is, how do you use it to really transform your business? And I think a lot of groups are still doing that, and we're testing it in a lot of places in very different ways. To the point on talent, I'm very excited because we too have some experimentation going on, and that's what you need to be doing. That's how AI actually gets better, is when you experiment and you know what works and what doesn't, and you grow on that database. So from a talent perspective, we've been using that a lot for resume screening appropriately, responsibly, with all the guardrails in place to help us see through who's going to be the best match. What we're doing now is saying, how do we use that? Instead of going outside, and, we all use LinkedIn to go out and look up talent and find opportunities. But how can we turn that to an internal perspective? Our colleagues continue to say it's great to bring in talent from the outside, and it makes sense to do that a lot. But equally, we've invested a lot of time and energy. We'd like to grow at Pfizer too. So, my candidate experience team have a pilot of what's going on where we would call it our internal LinkedIn. And that really markets to our colleagues inside to say, hey, if you filled out your, talent card, these are the 3-4 jobs you should be interested in. Would you like to apply? And, the first, when we piloted it, I think first people were like, I think this is spam. you know? And so I asked my team, can you pick up the phone and call people? Because I think they think it's like coming from outside. And now, we're starting to see some traction. It's still early days, but a lot of that is helping us to grow our own database and be able to deploy a talent strategy where we'll know who has what skills, who might be a better fit for certain jobs. It helps us speed up that placement, because we know that recruiting can take a long time. It can be very costly, and your colleague engagement goes up because your productivity is just faster. So, I'm super excited about that. We're exploring some other things as well in compensation, of how to use, some of our data appropriately to generate offers. We do them in systems anyway, comp increases and whatnot. But how can we be a little bit more creative and take the burden off of our compensation team and benefits team and use that better? And equally, in my function, we have centralized our basically our services to colleagues. So even though we're the face, the back end of payroll and things like that sit in a hub, and they sit more of in a centralized area within our finance function. And they're exploring with partnership with us on an experience. So what's the experience we want our colleagues to have? So when they engage and initiate a maternity leave, is it easy? Is it hard? Could we make it more, can we give them an agent to actually help them fill out their paperwork faster and it feel a little bit more personable rather than a medical, leave? And equally for a medical leave, is it appropriate? Do you have the right information? And can we just speed that up and make it better for that colleague? So I'm super excited, and I think more to come, but definitely in the exploration phase at the moment.
Yeah, I love it. You tied a couple things together there. If I think about this concept of mobility, before you talked a little bit about the leadership traits and sort of how you're transforming what leadership looks like, and I think you talked about cultivating certain capabilities. If I recall, curiosity and adaptability were two of the biggest.
Mhm.
As you think about that, and I loved how you mentioned we're here to make sure that we're investing in our existing talent versus just going out and to buy. What are some of the best ways you're finding that you're either assessing for that? Because I think
Mm.
it's a tough thing to sometimes assess for. And And then also, where are you looking to, and how are you developing some of those top leadership
Mm.
traits?
Yeah, good question. We asked ourselves that question too a few years ago, and we have four core values across Pfizer. So very clearly, courage, excellence, equity, and joy. And we have three behaviors under each one that really describe what we're looking for. Um, in addition, what we did was to say, okay, we're hiring people in. We want them to be agile, but how are they, once they get here, these are the values they have to abide by. This is how they need to operate and what's expected of them. But how do we know that they can do it? And so we developed these leadership actionable attitudes, is what we call them. We partnered with a outside firm just because we wanted it to, we wanted to make sure they were validated and did all the right focus groups in order to make that happen. And we created some actionable attitudes, and that is something that even internally or externally, we make people when they apply for a job go through and do a little assessment. And for vice president levels and up, we do a further assessment of a deeper dive with a interview. But for as the first part, you actually have to fill out this questionnaire, and it rates you and it gives you as a candidate feedback of here's some of your areas of strengths, here's some where you might need some help, and there's just helpful feedback. It doesn't mean that you won't get hired if you didn't ace all of it, but it tells us, do they have the learning mindset? One of our actionable attitudes it happens to be one of my favorite. We call progress over perfection. And this isn't about, hey, stop getting stuck. But we know that in order for innovation to happen, you have to test a lot and you have to fail a lot, right? That's when you know what works and what doesn't work. If you get stuck on perfection, somebody's going to pass you by, right? They're going to pass you by because they're going to just be learning as they go. And so that progress over perfection tells us, do they have the agility? Can they do that? And we look at it across the team. Like, what does it do? Do you need more of that? Do you have enough of that? Do you have too much of that? And so when you're hiring somebody, be cautious of what will that do for your team. And so that assessment has really become, part of our process. And we know going in what we're dealing with. Now, I'm sure it's not going to be 100% right, but it's way further than what we've ever done before. And it gives us a good way to evaluate that we've got some checks and balances in place, in addition to a face-to-face interview and process, that we're building that capability so that when we hire, we're not just hiring. There will be moments where we have to hire for a job. There's a specific expertise. We don't want somebody who's just done it all. We want somebody who's only done one thing, and we need them to be the expert in their domain. But the vast majority, we want to hire you because we believe you could do lots of different things. And as, jobs change, experiences change, titles change, workflow changes, you still have the capabilities and the skills to be able to adapt to those. And more importantly, you have the ability to lead others to adapt to that, right? You create that culture that it's acceptable and it's expected. And it makes you a more of an innovative team or company if you do that well.
Yeah. So I want to take us full circle. I think about the way you opened up and talking about your background in terms of almost stumbling into HR and then having a mentor that really helped guide you. You couple that with what's happening in today's world. And so I think I saw a stat just last week that around 25% of entry-level jobs year over year were, or there was a elimination or not as many new jobs, and a 4% increase in executive jobs. You've spoken a lot around the importance of early talent and internships and thinking about how to invest in that. With the dynamics that are happening in the market, how do you still keep a focus on staying true to your either your personal mission or the organization's personal mission around bringing in these early career individuals, interns, and others, and then making sure that you're able to create equity for equal opportunity across the board for these individuals?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky, but I would say, one, I'm personally committed to that because I started as an intern, and, clearly if I can get to this level, I think a lot of people can, and they just need a chance. And so I think, if your recruiting processes are broad and thoughtful, and you're looking at skills and experiences versus just targeted certain schools, you'll get the same thing if you keep doing the same thing. And so for us, we always hire the best of the best, but we make sure that we span, we are very broad with our net. And I think that helps to ensure diversity of experience, diversity of skills, diversity in general. But you still expect the same things, right? You want to make sure that you're hiring the best people that can bring that perspective and have a potential for growth. So this summer, we actually revamped our summer internship program where we brought people in much more targeted to say, we're going to work with hiring managers. In the past, it's been a great experience. People put it on their resume, they go do something different. And this time we said, we want to be really targeted and bring people in that we believe in the future we can hire. It may not be tomorrow because they might be going back to school, but we want to build that connection and really test them with real good, projects. And so we brought in fewer, but we did that specifically, not because of any cost cutting. We did it because we wanted to make sure their experience was a good one. We didn't want 3 interns in one group and 1 manager. It didn't make sense. So really creating that process. And then we've also put a lot more rigor into the internship program. So there's a curriculum that they have. They are learning and talking to a lot of our executives. Each of our executives have sponsored certain programs for them. They do fireside chats. And, just having a conversation. I had mine yesterday with the people that are in people experience, and their backgrounds are so diverse, which I was really happy that, even if they had a biology background, they said, I was fascinated in HR, so I wanted to be in HR. And now they've changed their mind to say, I think I want to go into the field of HR. And so you've got to develop that. But equally, you're absolutely right. There's a lot more pressure on companies. But when you're deliberate, every company still has turnover. Every company still has people that retire. And every company will need different skills. And so you have to be smart about what are the decisions that you make that will allow you to still do those good things. Because nobody wants to be at a company where there's no growth, no investment, no development for them. So you might have fewer, but you should do it really way better, right? Because I have this discussion a lot with even my team where sometimes you have to make hard decisions, restructure a group, a function. And, immediately everybody says, oh, you can't do that Christmas party. You can't do this because it's going to make everybody feel bad. And my answer is, look, as long as you treat people with respect, and are really clear about the rationale about why you do them, you also have an obligation to make the place that you're at and for those that are left behind a great place, because why else would they stay? So you have to create that. And I believe in that. And I think it's important to bring fresh skills and experiences into, an organization and a team everywhere you go, because it's important for that growth and development. Otherwise, you're going to stagnate.
I love it. I love the bit of that playbook you have. So as we're wrapping up our time, a couple quick rapid fire questions. And they said HR chose you, but if you did anything other than HR, what would it be?
Psychologist. I feel like
Okay.
that's what I do at home anyways.
Yeah, maybe that was an easy one.
Uh,
Beach vacation or ski trip?
mm. Maybe in between, because I love mountains and lakes, but I don't love the beach and I don't ski.
Oh, okay. All right. I like that. A hybrid answer.
Mm.
Um, are you more of a planner or a go with the flow type of traveler?
Totally go with the flow.
Oh, good. And last one, morning person or a night owl?
Night owl, hands down.
Night owl.
I'm trying my best to be a morning person, but it's just not happening.
No, no.
Not happening. I do my
Well,
best thinking at night. So
okay. Well, I know when to reach out to you now, late in the evening
exactly.
next time. Payal, thank you so much for joining us on the Radical Innovators podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fun going down memory lane a little bit.
Yeah, and I hope you have a great summer and hopefully see you out at one of my dinners coming up in the
Absolutely.
fall.
I look forward to it.
All right,
You
take
too. Enjoy
care.
summer. Bye.